Helene, and then Milton.
Yeah.
Back-to-back hurricanes slamming the U.S. Talk about adding insult to injury, right? And it's not just the damage. Now everyone's asking, is there even enough money to help everyone get back on their feet?
Yeah, the political battle brewing over disaster relief funding, it's almost as intense as the storms themselves.
We're diving into all of it today. FEMA, the SBA, accusations flying left and right. You might have seen that clip even. The one where Fox News' Peter Doocy really grilled Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, about aid to Lebanon.
Right after Hurricane Helene, too. The timing was.
Oh, it got everyone talking. So we're going to unpack those claims, follow the money. By the end of this deep dive, you'll know exactly what's going on.
And you can decide for yourself if this whole system, well, if it's really working the way it should.
Okay, so rewind back to that White House briefing. It was tense. Doocy's basically saying, Biden's sending millions to Lebanon while Americans are struggling after a hurricane. What are his priorities?
It grabs your attention, right? Oh, absolutely. And honestly, it's a perfect example of how a simple question, well, it can get complicated very, very quickly. This whole idea that helping Lebanon means we can't help hurricane victims here, that's just not how government funding works.
See, and that's what I wanted to dig into, because on the surface, it sounds like a fair question, right? We're talking about people who've lost everything. Shouldn't they come first?
It's totally understandable, that reaction. But here's the thing. The aid pledged to Lebanon, that comes from the State Department's budget. That's foreign aid. Disaster relief here in the U.S., that's FEMA. Totally different department, totally different budget. Department of Homeland Security, actually.
So it's like saying, well, I paid my rent, so now I can't buy groceries this month.
Exactly. Both important, right, but completely different accounts. The real question isn't about helping Lebanon. It's about whether our system is ready to help ourselves when disaster hits. And that leads right into President Biden's whole plea to Congress. FEMA is running low on funds, like really low.
And, of course, Congress is on recess, and they don't seem to be rushing back anytime soon.
Which is a huge problem because it's not just FEMA feeling the pressure. Remember, the SBA, Small Business Administration, they're absolutely essential after a disaster.
Right, the SBA, those low-interest disaster loans that help people rebuild.
Exactly. Imagine you've put everything into your business, your bakery, whatever it is, and suddenly, boom, hurricane wipes it all away. That SBA loan, that could be the only way you ever reopen, hire back your staff, get back to normal.
It really puts things in perspective when you put it that way.
And right now, with Helene and Milton, the need for those loans, through the roof. But here's the problem. The SBA is about to hit its borrowing limit.
Okay, so let me get this straight. FEMA's low on cash, the SBA is about to max out, we have 2 major hurricanes, and Congress is on vacation.
You got it. And of course, did we mention it's an election year?
Oh, yeah, adding fuel to the fire. And speaking of which, I've heard this other claim going around that FEMA funds are being used to house migrants at the border. Trump and some others are pushing that pretty hard. Is there anything to it?
Okay, so that's one of those claims that gets twisted, you know? Yeah, FEMA does help shelter migrants sometimes. It's called the Shelter and Services Program. It's for cities and states dealing with an influx of migrants, helping them handle it.
So it's not like they're taking money from hurricane relief to, like, put migrants up in hotels or something.
Right. Different funds entirely. The Shelter and Services Program has its own budget, completely separate. But even though FEMA might be able to handle both right now, the bigger picture is a little scary.
Because if another hurricane hits, or the migrant situation needs more support, FEMA's stretched thin, right? Like a rubber band about to snap.
Exactly. And that's why this standoff with Congress, it's so crucial.
Because without Congress approving more money, FEMA can't really do anything, can they?
They're looking at a potential shortfall right as hurricane season gets worse. Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, he basically said FEMA's burning through its funds and they won't make it through hurricane season without Congress.
Okay, so we have depleted funds, we might be short on funds, 2 hurricanes, and a Congress that doesn't seem to want to come back. What does that mean for the people who need help right now?
That's what we're going to look at next, because this isn't just Washington playing games. This is real people's lives, their homes, their businesses, and the clock is definitely ticking. We can't forget, though, right? Behind all the budget talk, the politics, there are real people dealing with the wreckage of these hurricanes.
Oh, absolutely. Families trying to salvage anything they can, businesses, it's their whole livelihood just washed away.
And they're looking to FEMA, to the SBA for help. It's a lifeline.
It's heartbreaking. And you're right, it's easy to forget that human cost when we're talking about all this other stuff. So what happens to those people, those families, if FEMA doesn't get that money?
Worst case scenario, they have to start picking and choosing who gets help. Which communities, which projects. Imagine having to do that.
That's a terrifying thought, to be the one who just misses out.
And even if you do get aid, the delays. Every day without a roof, every day a business stays closed. That adds up.
And those delays have this ripple effect, don't they? Like, businesses can't rebuild, so people are out of work. It's the whole community.
Exactly. It's a chain reaction. And it all comes back to that political fight. Every day, Congress waits, the stakes get higher for people.
We did talk about it being an election year earlier, right? How much is that playing into all of this, do you think?
Well, politicians know disaster relief is a big deal to voters. How they respond, it matters. So some might not want to give Biden a win by just giving him the money.
So it all becomes this political game,
Yeah,
even when it's about helping people.
unfortunately, yeah. And it's not new either. Remember Hurricane Katrina? Hurricane Maria? This has been happening for a while.
It's like, we're stuck then. Disaster, FEMA needs money, Congress waits, and the people needing help are the ones who pay the price.
And that takes us to Speaker Johnson's statement, you know? He's saying he won't even think about bringing Congress back until November, after the election.
So it's politics first, people's lives second.
It looks that way to a lot of folks, and we can't ignore this, right? This refusal. It has real consequences. FEMA can't do its job. The SBA might have to turn people away. It's millions of Americans wondering if anyone's even listening.
That's a bleak picture. What does it say about how we deal with disasters these days, then, with everything so politically divided?
It shows the system's broken, really. We react after the fact instead of being ready. We scramble for money when it's already too late for some people.
It's like we always say, isn't it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Except here, that ounce of prevention could save lives, not just money.
And we're talking billions in recovery costs, potentially. It's about thinking ahead, building things to last, being smarter about the risks, right?
Which probably means dealing with climate change, too, if we're being honest.
And that brings us right back to the politics. Because as long as climate change is a debate, it's hard to get everyone on the same page about those solutions.
It's like a trap we've made for ourselves. We need politicians to fix it, but they only seem to care when it's too late, and then it's someone else's problem.
It's why we can't be silent. We have to keep talking about this, keep asking these questions.
So what can we do then? We've seen the problems, the funding issues, the cost. What's our next step? It feels like it sometimes, doesn't it? Like we're stuck.
Yeah.
How do we get them to see that this matters, that it's not just a game?
We have to stop accepting this whole wait till it's a disaster, then scramble thing. What if we treated this like the priority it is before the hurricane hits, you know?
You mean like FEMA has a special fund just for natural disasters, so there's no arguing about the money when it's needed?
Exactly. No delays, no political games. The money's there. FEMA uses it to help people right away.
Makes sense to me. But knowing Congress, I bet they'd find something to argue about.
Oh, I'm sure they would. It's about changing how we think, right? Investing in being ready instead of always cleaning up the mess afterward.
An ounce of prevention. Except here, that ounce could save lives, whole communities, not just money.
And we're talking billions in recovery costs, potentially. It's about thinking ahead, building things to last, being smarter about the risks, right?
Which probably means dealing with climate change, too, if we're being honest.
Which brings us right back to the politics, doesn't it? Because as long as climate change is a debate, it's hard to get everyone on the same page about those solutions.
It's like we're stuck then. We need politicians to fix it, but they only seem to care when it's too late.
Which is why we can't be silent. We have to keep talking about this, keep asking these questions.
So what can we do? We've laid it all out. The problems, the funding, the human cost. What's our next step?
We make ourselves heard. Contact your representatives, demand action, better preparedness, climate action. These issues are huge, sure, but they affect us all. What we do or don't do, that's what will decide things in the end.
This whole deep dive, this whole situation, it's been eye-opening. We see the games, the funding shortfalls, what happens when nothing gets done.
But we also see the power of knowing what's going on, right? Of understanding the system, even when it's frustrating.
Exactly. So keep asking questions, keep pushing for better, keep talking about this stuff. You can find more information about FEMA, the SBA, those programs we talked about on our website. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay safe out there.